Hi, I'm Deborah Rosati, founder and CEO of Women Get On Board, and this is Women Get On Board in Conversation. Our goal with these video series is to help empower women on their corporate journey, to bring in guest speakers that we will have thought-provoking conversations to help you lead and serve with confidence and courage in corporate boards. Today, I am pleased to have Beth Borody, CEO of the Femina Collective, and she's here to talk about how women can mitigate risks in the mining industry. And Beth, I was really intrigued by your blog a few weeks ago, because I know you're weekly blogging, and the one that you spoke about was really about collectively how we can create more opportunities and a more supportive environment for women in the mining sector to accelerate their journey and our journey to a more sustainable energy future. So Beth, delighted to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Deborah. And I'm so excited to be here and be a part of this conversation. I always appreciate what you're able to spearhead with these initiatives and these conversations, and just really honored to be able to speak about this with you today.
Thank you. So let's get started. Let's talk a little bit about yourself so we can get an understanding of how you, as a woman in the as an executive in the mining sector, really then parlayed into this Femina Collective, and how some of the ways that you're working on advocating to get more women in mining. So let's start with a brief outline background to bring us into the work that you're doing at the Femina Collective.
Sure. So I always say and always start out saying that Femina Collective is the baby that I never intended on having. It really was started a bit by accident at the beginning of the pandemic. The world was going into this chaotic state. No one really knew what was happening. And I was sitting in my Bay Street office, kind of feeling pretty isolated, being a young woman in a leadership role in the mining industry, and not really knowing where to go to find other women who were in similar situations. And so as the pandemic hit, I sent out a simple Zoom link to a few women, some who worked at the same company as I did, and a couple who were outside, and just said, let's just connect. Let's meet up. Let's just make sure we're all doing okay. And we did. And we had this really beautiful conversation that was so authentic, where we all just kind of took our masks down and we shared what was happening that was going really well for us, what was challenging for us, and just had this really, really fantastic conversation. And we agreed at the end. I said, let's do this next quarter and make sure that we're all doing okay. And one quarter turned into a next. And I sent this Zoom link out. I think it was called like Women in the Industry or Women in Something. There was no fancy title to it. It was just a Zoom link. And from the first call that we had 6 of us on from 2 companies, to all of a sudden the fourth call that we had 46 women from 16 companies across Canada joining this call and just wanting to connect and just wanting to be with other women and just share experiences. And so once the steam started picking up, all of a sudden these women were coming to me and saying, hey, what are you going to do with this? Here's what we'd like to see. Do you think you'll do anything more? And my immediate response was no. My immediate response was I was holding a very, very busy role at the time. I had my family, I had other responsibilities, and I thought there's no way I can take on anything else. But this need just kept coming in with these women just wanting to build something. And so back in the summer of 2021, I was sitting at my cottage and kind of was thinking through it. And I was speaking to my boss at the time. And it was really him. He said, you know what? Go and do this and build this out, because I had offered to build it out as part of the company. And he said, no, you just go ahead and you build it and we'll support you. And so Femina Collective was born, and we launched a membership-based organization for women to come and be able to connect together and share experiences, while also having access to advisors and our network at large to continue their professional growth. And we really saw the benefit of when you invest in a woman as her holistic self, not just her title, not just whatever her next professional accolade is, but ensuring that she feels as empowered as possible, she can truly take over the world. And she shows up at her job better. She shows up in her life better. And that is what we are all about, changing that experience for women in the mining industry.
That's powerful. And I think kind of liken it to just coming off the Summer Olympics and how well women did in the
Oh,
Olympics,
yes.
and
Yeah.
first time gender parity in the Olympics. And so, with that mindset, I think it can drive a lot of industries and a lot of collectives and communities to say, we can do this together, one step at a time, though, right?
Yes, absolutely. Which was fantastic to watch over the last 2 weeks. The female energy that was all over the Olympics was amazing. It was the first time, and hopefully that is just what we continue to see time and time again.
I love it. So let me just kind of delve into your LinkedIn post recently that you had titled "How Women Can Mitigate Risks in Mining." What I really liked about it, you identified 5 key risk factors, and then what you did is you talked about the intersectionality with all of these risk factors and how organizations, companies, people, leaders can use those as ways to innovate and develop new operating methods and providing more opportunities to work within the mining industry. So do you want us, I know we'll put a link to your article for sure, so we don't need to have it verbatim, but, obviously you've been thinking, maybe you were sitting on your dock thinking a lot about this, but maybe, and I thought they were really great, succinct risk factors. So maybe highlight those factors and maybe 1 or 2 points within.
Sure. Sure. I think, when we talk about mining, the language of mining is risks. And when we talk about DEI and we talk about bringing more women into the industry, you get a lot of attention when you can link it to how are we going to mitigate our risks? How are we going to manage risks by bringing in more women, making it more inclusive of an industry for people at large? And as we've thought about this just through the development of Femina and through my own experience within the industry, we know that there is a lot of conversation around the recruitment and retention of women, which is important. We need to continue to do that. Even in Canada, we are one of the highest percentages in the world, and we are still only sitting at 17% of our workforce being women, which we celebrate. And it's like, okay, I get why we're celebrating it because we are further along, but we still have such a far way to go. And that's important to be talking about. But when you look at mining and the full energy transition at large, you need to look at the entire system, right from investment through until your community engagement, your stakeholder management, and through to kind of your downstream customers. And one of the things that I've been working on over the last year is really trying to understand, how do women invest in the mining industry? Do women understand the opportunities of investment in the mining industry? Or is that still very much kind of the old boys club and mentality that we have? And truly everything that I have learned and read and conversations I have had have pointed to the old boys club. And so I think there is such an opportunity. We know here in Canada that women are going to inherit an enormous amount of wealth over the next 10 years. We are going to become more influential in the financial aspects within our families and within society at large. And mining has such an opportunity to be a place that women get more active in when it comes to their investing. We know that women are more kind of thoughtful when it comes to investing. They make more kind of community-minded, family-minded decisions when it comes to money matters. And if we are able to bring that lens to mining, not only does it have a rippling effect on personal lives and wealth generation for women at large, but it also allows women to have a bigger voice at the table of mining companies, whether that be through board seats, whether that be through influence as an investor. And we haven't seen a big movement of that yet. So that is one area when we look at mining here in Canada. We know that capital is strained. We know there's so many projects that are trying to get off the ground right now, and everyone is kind of going to the same buckets of money. And here we have this kind of untapped source of wealth. But with it also comes a need to educate and to ensure that there is a confidence in the mining industry. And so I feel like we can, that's one main risk that we look at, is getting women more involved financially and the access to capital within the industry right now. We also know, taking that kind of to the next level, to your board seats and to your executive levels, this is where we have a hard time finding women to come into these places. These are tough roles to hold. They're busy, they're demanding. The way that they are shaped right now are not conducive for many women, especially women who have families or other obligations. And so we need to be starting to think about how to do things differently. We saw that with BHP. They had a job share and a job split with their executive roles and their female leaders, where they co-shared roles and executive roles. We see people looking at daycare models on how to adapt daycare so that it works with shift work and isn't just, your 9 to 3, which is unrealistic for anyone who is in those working on shifts. And so we need to really try and actually take action to try and develop new ways to make women stay in executive and leadership roles and provide women opportunities, not just on boards with board seats, but actually as board chairs and leading those boards and having the influence when it comes to managing a board at large. Because often too many women are also afraid of losing their board seat once they get on it, that their voice can only go so far, where if we have those board chair positions, we actually have more influence on how we want boards to be managed at large.
You know what I call it? The power of 3. 1 woman on a board is a token. 2 women on a board is presence, and 3 women on a board is a voice. So collectively,
I love that.
Can lift each other up and take on those leadership roles. So I'm all with you. So you continue on.
Yes, I love that. And I think that again, it provides that kind of strength in numbers and that confidence to actually speak out and use your voice to do something differently. I think the other one, certainly speaking to that, is shifting the power and perception of mining. So right now we have a real risk of people not coming into the industry because of how it's been perceived in the past, where decisions are being made. Do people see themselves in mining? Do young girls see themselves in powerful women who are in the industry? And we need to shift that mindset from being a patriarchal kind of man-centered approach to having an industry that is actually welcoming to women, where women are believed, women are heard, women are respected, and we have a place for women so that we can bring in younger generations into the industry, which is a huge one. And then I think finally, one of the main risks that we always have, that's always been there, but I think it's getting more and more traction in the industry, is actually looking at your stakeholders, looking at the people around you. Mining does not create an ecosystem around it. Mining enters an ecosystem that is already established. We enter areas that already have social norms, social expectations, governing bodies, everything like that. And we cannot pretend that we now know what's best for those areas. We need to listen, we need to sit back, and we need to put people first with everything that we do. That goes to community leadership, that goes to understanding who are the minority groups within your stakeholders, what do they want? Those are often women and youth and people with different abilities. And we know that having all of those voices at the table is going to allow for a mine planning to go better, more smoother. You're not going to have as many disconnects between your community wants and needs and what the site can offer. And so making sure that those voices are fully encompassed and leveraging the fact of bringing female leadership forward and female voices into all of those aspects of your mine planning, execution, construction, will only make your mine more resilient into the future.
Wow, very, very articulate. One thing that I would add, I was just reminded that we have to go beyond stakeholders. We have to think about right holders as well, because they don't necessarily like to be categorized in stakeholders.
Very true. Yeah.
And especially in mining communities. So I'm sure you were thinking broader in that, but I was just reminded.
Yes, especially across the country, because it's often, even with Indigenous groups that are rights holders across Canada, but you have the difference between treaty nations and unceded territory and just the dynamics that has. And I think we talk a lot from an industry and a government perspective about how important these Indigenous government bodies are. But until they have equal seats at the table and they're actually able to participate with not just a consultation process, but an actual partnership, looking at equity, looking at how did they buy into a project, we're still treating them at arm's length as opposed to pulling them in. And we know that there is, again, if you look at that capital access, you look at the economics behind it, there's the whole movement of Indigenomics that is just the billion-dollar industry that is available by including Indigenous voices into your projects.
Love it. So, you've sort of identified these risk factors, but as board members, what can a board do? And I'm sure I can give you a few suggestions, but sitting in your shoes, what are some things at high level that you would say to boards if they reached out to you and said, hey, Beth, can you come in and talk to our board? What would be one or two things that you would say to boards to say that having, and I'm going to quote you on this because it was very powerful, is women's participation is not just beneficial, it is essential for accelerating the energy transition and ensuring that sustainable development of critical minerals. So, what from a board perspective, I mean, not all boards and not all companies are in the mining sector, but they're, ancillary and others. So are there some takeaways? Are there some key points that you would say, hey, as board members, I know you've advocated for a few things generally, but from a board perspective, like it's tone at the top, right?
It is tone at the top, and boards are the ones who can kind of make or break decisions when it comes to mining companies. And I would say, as a board, it is your responsibility to ensure that the companies that you are governing and you are overseeing are including and are inclusive and safe for women to participate. So what does that mean? That means ensuring that within your leadership, you do not settle for a full male leadership team. You push for women to be on that leadership team. You push for recruitment to be done differently so that you are pulling the right candidates and women in. And you ensure that as a board, you are also hearing from the females who are in your company. So whether that be through direct contact, asking for kind of interviews or connection with some of the women in the companies, something that gives real hands-on, tangible examples of what is the experience that women are facing and what can you do to advocate for them. Women are often blocked by either senior leadership, not necessarily intentionally or maliciously or anything like that, but simply that their voices do not get past where the final leadership blocks are. And as a board, you have an obligation to ensure that you are going beyond just your CEO, just your COO, and you are making sure that you are hearing from other women's voices for what those experiences are. And again, ensuring that you're recruiting on your board, that you're bringing women on. Not just as a token, but because it is valuable and it is a way to also mitigate your risk from a board perspective, but then also ensuring that your leadership team is inclusive of female voices as well.
Love it. So we could talk all afternoon, but I'm mindful of our window here. So what would be some of the key takeaways you would like to leave with our audience today, and where can they learn more about you and your work at the Femina Collective?
So some key takeaways I would say is don't be afraid to try something new. Don't be afraid to be the company that says, we're going to try an activity. We're going to try something new to attract women, to retain women, to do it. Don't be afraid if the idea is not going to work out. We have to be trying different things in order to get progress in this area and to be attracting women. And I would say again, listen to women. It sounds so basic and so easy, but it is so hard for companies to do, is actually to take a step back and listen to the female voices and ensure that there's a safe space for them to express themselves when it comes to that. And then finally, the last takeaway is just keep hiring women at your executive and leadership levels. Women are out there. I don't want to hear, oh, there's no qualified candidates. They are out there. They are everywhere, and they are waiting for these roles, and they are waiting to be asked and be brought to the table. And so if people want to find out more about me, more about Femina Collective, they can check out my LinkedIn at Bethany Borody. You can check out the Femina Collective page on LinkedIn or www.thefeminacollective.com for all of the information there and learn more about what we are doing. But it truly is, let's not overcomplicate it. Let's recognize women are 50% of the population, 51% of the population, I believe, here in Canada. We are here and we deserve to have a seat at every table and every level within this industry.
Hear, hear.
Mm-hmm.
Well said.
Thank you.
You're a woman after my own heart. And so that's it for this Women Get On Board in Conversation edition. Beth, thank you so much for joining us, sharing your insights with our Women Get On Board community.
Thank you so much, Deborah.
Thank you. So to find out more about Women Get On Board, and if you're interested in joining our community, we are 950 members strong and continuing to grow. Visit us at womengetonboard.ca or follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram at Women Get On Board.